So my name's Emily, and I'm going to be doing your interview today about your experience with CCIR and your research. So
Okay.
could I ask you to let people know, for anyone listening, what's your name, how old are you, and what school and country are you from?
Okay. So my name is Joslyn and I'm from Shenzhen Middle School and I am 16 going on 17 now. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so you're still in high school?
Yeah, I'm in high school. I'm a junior. Oh wait.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm a junior. I think so.
And for anyone from different countries, are you at the moment, are you studying anything particular at school? Are you still kind of broadly studying everything?
Yeah, I am studying on the AP track in my school and um I'm planning to major in art history in college.
Brilliant. So is it scientific research that you've done on this project, or is it more that that's something you're interested in, but you don't want to pursue it later?
Well, I think this is like a rather new subject for me, like in the field of art history, because it's a really large field. But it's actually the first time I really get in close touch with architecture, especially modern architecture. Although I knew something about modernism earlier, like I participated in a course pertaining to avant-garde art or contemporary art in summer last year. But this is the first time I really get to know some advanced knowledge about modern architecture as well as some like leading the earliest modernism ideologies. Yeah. And
Brilliant.
yeah, this topic actually fascinates me quite a lot. And yeah, I really do want to pursue it later.
Lovely. Okay. So how did you hear about CCIR and think this is something that I would be able to do?
Um, I think CCIR, as I remember, it is something that my counselor recommended to me when I was in the sophomore year. Like she told me that this is kind of like a quite prestigious like research institute, but it is rarely heard by students in our school in our city. Yeah, and I went to the website and I found like a pile of courses. While the course I chose is something that actually quite fascinated me. So yeah, I just decided to apply.
Great. So were you put off at all initially by the idea that it's research, and obviously there are a lot of people doing scientific research? Did that affect your decision at all?
Yeah, I do think like culminating in my own research after pursuing an advanced course would be really like intriguing to me. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what was your specific research topic, and what did you find from what you did?
Well, my study is like um it's actually quite a broad topic and I'm still like constantly revising my paper right now. And it is about mainly about architectural politics in China, but I think the architecture part is larger than the political part. Um, so in this research I included like a case study on a specific architecture, and this architecture that I particularly studied is categorized as a cultural center, which I think is pretty representative of the modern culture in China, like in the 21st century. And I studied like some of its forms, some of its allusions to history, as well as its like, yeah, its history, and also explore some ideologies behind the designs. And I did not only study the visual part of it, but also like explore some of its contextual part, like investment and how to say it, its location and relationship with like its community. And I also expanded this subject into some other architecture of a similar function or similar nature. And I kind of like um did a little bit of discussion on the architectural politics in 21st century in China.
So
Yeah.
did you base your research on basically mostly around one building? Is that right?
Yeah. It's basically a case study.
So did you get to go and see this building, or is it somewhere that you've been before?
Yeah, I did went to this site to like take a close view of the architecture as well as go inside and have an experience of it.
If you had to explain it to someone who doesn't really know anything about architecture, if you had to sum it up in, a few sentences, what you found, what would you say about it?
Well, let me think. So first, I think there are two main conclusions that I can draw from this research. Well, apart from all the descriptive parts, I think the first one I'd say is that like cultural centers in contemporary China um, alludes to its to the regional history as well as specific cultural context quite a lot. Well, I think how to put it. Let me think how to put it. So first, I observed like frequent allusions to like ancient Chinese architecture and these kind of cultural centers. And besides this conclusion, I'd say that like modern Chinese architecture still contains a lot of how to say that propaganda um propagizing. I don't know if that's the correct word, but like
I think I know what you're saying. So it's sort of like not necessarily propaganda in the formal sense, but it's promoting a certain political attitude. Is
yeah,
that right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, so both like the visual part or like yeah, both the visual part and the internal structure of like most cultural centers in contemporary China kind of conveys a sense of political ideology or and like yeah, just promotes a kind of political ideology and emphasizes on the greatness of the country as well as some like contemporary cultural values in China. I'd
And
say that.
what ideology would you say this is, or it most relates to?
Um, I do think one important topic is the empowering of the country itself
Hmm.
and the all encompassing role that the nation itself have. Since like I also observed that the investment in these kind of cultural centers is very large and it is not something that like private institutions can afford, which means that like most these kind of buildings are sponsored by the government and the governments are more and more willing to sponsor these kind of architecture. Yeah, so yeah, it does express the feeling that the like government and the country is all encompassing while at the same time, it is like encouraging of innovations of individuals and private institutions as well. Although like the government or the country is still like taking all of these in control. I'd say that in brief words, but I think the actual situation is more complex, but I would say that.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. No, that's exactly what we're looking for. So yeah, just a brief way of explaining it to people. I'm sure you did so much research. Do you think, so you're saying that you'd like to go and study art history in the future. Has this affected what you think you might like to focus on, or where you're going to study? Like, what are your thoughts going forwards?
Well, yes. At first, I would say it had a little impact on my research subject, but it's not quite much. So at first, I decided to study like just merely the relationship between the architecture and its surroundings, since I read a book called um the what's that called? I forgot, but it's a famous book by Jane Jacobs, and it's about like city planning and like yeah, urban planning and urban development. And it explores like the relationship between architecture and its context and the like the blocks surrounding it and also the people living nearby. Like it explains something about architecture, but further than architecture in depth. So I was quite inspired by this book. So I decided to focus on like how architecture actually impacts people's life. But then like this subject orientation, art history, kind of guided me towards like a more visual analysis and a kind of just focus more on the architecture itself. Actually another factor that guides me through this focus is that I do not know quite much about urban planning and it's super complex. And I decided that it's like it may be the effect of this research may be not as good as if I focus on that subject.
So maybe you could do some research on planning, on depending on also what country you're looking at, because I guess it will vary a lot between countries.
Yeah. And I think like urban planning is too macroscopic, and I do think I have to do some kind of quantitative analysis if I focus on that subject. And so yes.
Yeah, I have a friend who works it's called town planning here, but she works for Bidwell's, which is a private organization. And from what I hear, it's very much mostly admin, just figuring out what they can do. But I can imagine that's very, very different in a more kind of patriotic country with more government money going towards that kind of thing. So yeah, it sounds very, very interesting. So who were your tutors in your group?
So my mentor is Sophia, like Sophia Singler, and my what's that called? My TA is Luca, and I think they're somehow colleagues. They're both from Cambridge. Yeah, and I think they really provided me with a lot of assistance, professional assistance, especially my TA who like who spent the most efforts on revising my essays, and like his revisions are super rigorous and I found them really beneficial.
Right, okay. So when you first met them, was it in a group setting or just one-on-one on Zoom? How was it?
We first met in our first session and both of them were present. And that session was actually a lecture session, so we did not have much interaction at that time.
Okay, so you were able to choose an architecture related course and then you had the lectures to help you sort of focus your research, is that right?
Well, actually not really, but because the lecture and the TA supervision sessions are actually somehow separate. Like in our formal lectures taught by Ms. Singler, we did not talk much about our own research. Yeah, because I think this course is like a college level course and it is based on the assumption that we do not have much basic knowledge about architecture, especially the modern one. So yeah, we just the mentor just guided us through all of the most important ideas of modernism and modern architecture. Yeah, I do think like the lectures are all very compact and it's full of knowledge and full of knowledge and explanations. And as for our research, it is mostly done in our TA sessions. So our TA assign us with our research project assignments every week, and we just hand in our homework, which includes like introduction, abstract, and all the way to the formal research paper.
So did you find the lectures were at a good level for you? Because obviously you haven't been to university, but you obviously will have some background knowledge. Did you find that it was suitable for you?
Yeah, I do think so. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, lovely. So your TA was your main sort of guidance with your own personal research.
Yeah, that's true.
So did you get to choose exactly what you wanted to research, or were they there to guide you? Like, what led you to deciding this is what I want to write my paper on?
Not we did not really receive much guidance before we chose our topics, but yeah, we did do some kind of independent readings before we chose our subjects. And um, well, my classmate, he decided on a subject rather quickly, while I kind of pondered between some subjects for a while, and then I asked my TA for an advice, and he provided me with it, and then I just make my decision like a week later.
Yeah, great. Okay. And how did you find it? So was it group sessions with the lectures and then one-on-one with the TA, or were you ever in small groups, or how was that structured?
Um, our lectures were mainly about the mentor talking, like teaching knowledge to us, and we were allowed to ask questions after that, and yeah, but there were not much interactions like at the time. Well, in our TA sessions, our TA encouraged us to discuss our ideas. Oh, by the way, I only have one classmate, so it is a 1 to 2 course.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we really got to have some really close discussions. And um well, to be honest, although our TA tend to talk too much and just tend to like talk
It
too
can
much,
happen. Yeah.
overly expressive, so that my classmate and I were somehow um had less opportunities to speak. I think like the discussions are really kind of juicy and useful and really
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there anything that you remember that you really learned from your classmate, or like a discussion that you had that made you think, oh my goodness, I'm seeing things in a completely different way now?
Um well,
Or just a juicy one, you know?
yeah, I do think the time we learned most from each other were the times that we introduced the time when we introduced modern architecture of our own choice, which was a part of our assignment at the time. Yeah, so I can see the stark difference between um my classmate and my structuring of the presentation, and like the perspective we take in like looking at the architecture. So I remember that I was like, I had a tendency of looking at an architecture from like the whole part, from a wholeness part, and then just suddenly zooming into a very small part of the architecture,
Yeah.
while my classmates tend to like um do a more detailed and thorough and kind of yeah, detailed, thorough, and sequential this kind of tour through the architecture. So I saw the difference at the time, and I kind of um really learned from this method, and which actually benefited my research later.
Yeah, great. Okay. Um, so did you find with your TA and your mentor, how were they available to help? Like, did you only have scheduled sessions, or could you drop them an email if you had a problem? How was that? Were they available for you?
Um, yeah, my TA was really responsible, and my classmate and I both dropped quite a lot of questions to him by email. And I could see that my TA and mentor were both really busy, but yeah, they did provide like timely assistance and advice pretty much to us.
Great. And then with looking at your paper, I mean, would your TA literally go through and just put notes on top of it to help you work on it?
Oh yeah, that's true. So we submitted our coursework in the Dropbox, and then my TA and my mentor would make the revision and just drop it into the Dropbox. Yeah, and by the way, I'd like to mention that my TA was like very yeah, as I just mentioned, he was really rigorous in this process of revising, and he sometimes like spoke something that he himself would suddenly find harsh, and then just say that I'm not like I'm not intending to criticize you and something like that. Yeah,
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 but I'm thinking about it, these people are university level tutors. So in their head, they're thinking this is like a university level piece when really you're only 16. So it's sometimes better to have someone who's that rigorous, and then you can improve yourself as much as you possibly can.
yeah. I really appreciate that. Yeah, and he also taught me some things about basic architectural writing, such as to avoid vague expressions, and like in contextual analysis an important thing is to avoid municipal expressions and to make things like relate to the audience instead of just being too like abstract and too flawed, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you learnt so much in such a short amount of time. Um, what would you say to anyone who was considering going onto this course, but they weren't sure, or they were like, oh, I don't know if the professors will have time for me, if it's not suitable for an art related subject? What would you say to them?
Well, um I'd say that um first, I really recommend this course. And first of all, I'd say that it requires some level of listening skill. Like you have to be a really good listener to participate in this course because it's really complex. And the TA and the mentor both spoke very quickly and spoke a lot of information in short time. And I do think that it is also important for you to be contemplative and like to love to think beneath things, because although this course is about architecture, it like explores a lot of things been like what was that beyond architecture, a lot of ideologies related stuff. And yeah, because it is placed in the modern context, and you know the modern period is full of revolutions and different subversions and rise of new ideas. So I think like the course is half about architecture itself and half about like the revolutions and the way that these architects think about things, like yeah, analyze things. Mm.
Brilliant. All right. Is there anything else you'd want to say to someone who's thinking about coming to the CCIR?
um well, let me think.
You don't have to say anything. It's just in case you wanted to add anything.
Well, I do not have any specific things to add. I'm just
Okay.
thinking. Yeah, good luck.
Okay.
Good luck to you and on your this research journey. It will be really precious.
Yes, it sounds like it's been an amazing experience for you. Thank you so much for talking to us. And just wishing you the best of luck with getting a paper published and reviewed again.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
Joslyn.
yeah.
Oh,
And
go
by the
on.
way, one thing to add. So if you're pursuing a humanities research project, I think you will be aiming for something beyond the research itself. You will not be expecting to achieve everything you want to achieve in this single research. Instead, I think like this project will be more like an inspiration for your future academic explorations. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. So it sounds like, yeah, it's really influenced you with your future. But yeah, thank you so much and best of luck.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Appreciate your time.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.